Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ships at sea, welcome to another episode of Property of the Week with PropertyLens. For those of you who don't know who we are, I'm Bob Frady, co-founder and CEO of PropertyLens, and with me, as always, is
John Siegman, co-founder and president of PropertyLens.
John. I thought we'd do something a little bit different today.
Okay, what?
I wanted to see what it looks like if we go to a cheaper house rather than the, fancy Dan estates we always look at, to see whether it's worth spending $69 to find out what's going on with a place that might cost less than $100,000.
Wow.
What do you think?
I think less than $100,000, you could probably put that on your Amex card.
Oh, you know what? You're probably getting yourself right to Delta Sky Elite or Diamond Platinum if you could manage to do that. 4 easy payments of $24,999 each for those of you with a $25,000 limit. And there's your real estate commission all eaten up. I'll take that myself. Thank you. So here's what we did. I was thinking about St. Louis for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I was thinking about St. Louis. Maybe I had a rib fixation. And I thought, well, let's go see what's in St. Louis. And I go to the front screen of Realtor.com, and up pops a house on 1201 Northdale Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri for $79,900.
Sweet.
Why would you spend $69 on a house that only costs $89,000 or $79,000? Well, let's find out, shall we? 4 beds, 1 bath, 73 years old, 1,500 square feet, 2/10 of an acre, moderately affected in prior damage. So, John, give me the highlights of this property.
All right. Well, we're looking at it, 15 possible damaging events. Come on, St. Louis. It's got tornadoes, it's got hail, it's got straight line winds, it's got lightning, very close to a very large fault system, the New Madrid fault. There's stuff to experience here, and you ought to know about it. 5 known building permits, so, somebody's been doing something to it. The 4 owners in the last 15 years might be a little concerning. That's some pretty high turnover, but this is a starter house with only 1 bathroom. So there might be just, hey, we get in, we do something, and we move on to the next house. We're not seeing any updates to major systems, so, it could have some major renovation needs. But the repair costs are relatively low, $4,000 a year for the next couple of years. Tax increases, pretty much at national average per year, and insurance actually a little bit below national average. So the rates must be set fairly well in St. Louis. They know what they're getting themselves into.
Then what are the highs and lows?
Highs, good fire protection. It's not going to get flooded. The roof's in good shape. It's got good public utilities. And the city itself is actually ready for natural disasters. They're very well prepared to handle them. The property condition on the low side, it's a fixer-upper. Don't be too surprised by that. Not in the safest of neighborhoods. Hail we talked about. It does get warm in St. Louis. And there seems to be a size discrepancy between what the county assessor says, what the MLS says, or possibly even what the replacement cost is being estimated off of.
So this is not a system replacement. This is a system rebuilding. You're down to the studs. You're going to need to put these systems in. So this $79,000 house is an opportunity for someone to play fixer-upper, but it is also in need of a lot of repairs. The good news, it's near some major highways, low risk for hurricanes, wildfires, and landslides on a tree-lined street, and central electric. This 2-year repair cost is a little bit misleading because it is down to the studs. So you're gonna spend money on walls, you're gonna spend money on fixtures, the kind of stuff that we don't measure. And your annual insurance premium is about $1,600 a year, which is about $150 a month, I think, maybe $140. So it's a significant amount of money that you're going to be paying for insurance relative to the cost of the property itself. How about the structural integrity with the lack of a basement? Why the discrepancy? between what the assessor says and what the MLS says. And you're pretty close to some toxic release facilities as well.
My biggest concern with these would be the lack of a basement, and not necessarily affecting structural integrity, because lots of homes are built on slab. You live in California, you're always built on slab. But you are in an area that is known to have tornadoes, and you have nowhere to go.
Yeah, where are you going in a tornado? So let's look at some of the estimates. Our 2-year repair estimates are going to be on the higher side rather than the lower side. It looks like the HVAC system, electrical systems, and water heaters have recently been updated, but all the other stuff, it's down to the studs. So, and we don't have a rebuild the walls estimate in here. So you're probably going to end up on the higher end, more towards the $50,000 range than to the estimated range, which would be about $9,000.
One of the, I guess, nice things, there's only one bathroom. So bathroom and kitchen, your piping and your plumbing, relatively limited.
Here's what we see from a key findings standpoint on the buyer lens. Extreme heat, of course, at St. Louis, it gets a lot of that. But also in the wintertime, it's at risk of ice dams. And what do we do to guard against ice dams, John Siegman?
We put on our gutter guards.
That's right. That's right. High risk of hail events, and then below average walkability. So you're not necessarily taking the bus everywhere you need to go. Lots of questions that you can ask. So if you have high risk of PFAS contamination in drinking water, what do you do?
You get your water tested and see if you need a filtration filter system for the house.
Very good. John, you're doing 100% so far. You got high risk for crime. What do you do?
Alarm system and cameras.
Correct. And potentially even grates on the windows.
Yeah, and deadbolt locks everywhere and things like that. Or just signs saying you've got all this stuff.
So the next three are all really one bucket. 73-year-old home, built before 1978, with a fireplace. And since this is down to the studs, that's not as much of an issue. You probably don't have to remediate lead paint. You probably don't have to remediate asbestos, but you do still want to check, and you want to see whether you've got knob and tube wiring in the place. And you got to check on the sewer line. Sewer line's not reported. This is a 73-year-old property. It's in fixer condition. So if you don't know what the sewer line is, what do you do, John?
You pay to have it scoped. Send a camera down it and take a look.
And so this discount home has gotten a little bit more expensive to at least see what's going on. So you've got a sewer line inspection, which is not part of the standard inspection. You've got a water test that's not part of the standard inspection. Those are two things that are going to cost you when you get this place inspected. Now, listen, you're probably not going to get an inspection contingency on this unless somebody's desperate to dump it. But those are things that you should check before you buy this house. So this $80,000 bargain is getting more expensive by the minute. Okay, from an insurance standpoint, here's the interesting thing.
Your replacement cost is 3.5 times what it costs to buy the house.
Yeah. So it's a
easier to buy it than to build it.
Yep, exactly.
And make sure that you insure it properly, because when that tornado comes along, you're going to want to have it replaced.
Yep. So the cost to rebuild this is about $180 a square foot. You might even want to consider knocking it down and rebuilding, depending upon what the comps are in the area. Okay, most recent listing is July 18th. It's still on the market, $79,900. The assessment value is low, but the market value is low as well. So knocking it down and rebuilding is probably not such a good idea because you wouldn't get your money back. No basement. Okay, here's what we see. Sold as is, no inspections or repairs. So what happens when you have a no inspections or repair listing? What's the first thing you should do?
Buy this report.
Get a PropertyLens report. Absolutely, you are correct, John Siegman. If you have a property that says as is, no inspections or repairs, the first thing you should get is a PropertyLens report. Because we'll tell you, hey, listen, here's some things you need to check out here.
But here's one interesting thing. It says it's 5 bedroom. The county says it's 4 bedroom. Right there, you may have just an entirely bigger mess on your hands than you're counting for.
So that's a question that you want to ask. Why the discrepancy? So for right now, I'm in the chips if I spent $69 on this report. I know what I'm walking into, which is kind of a mess, but I know some things to look for. Oh, you can also package it with another house if you wanted to. There you go.
Which is probably right around the corner.
Yes. Here's all the information about the municipality, the construction type, the ownership. So back in 2021, this house sold for $113,000 and is now was listed last year for $169,000 and fell to $79,000.
$80,000 discount.
Yeah, that is a big, giant discount. And the question is what happened? Hard to say if we can see, but we'll try to find out.
I think we have a clue though.
What's the clue?
Deed for January of 2023. It's a limited liability company.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was probably thinking about doing a flip and then thought better of it.
Yep.
So if you're not as talented in a construction-minded way as the guys who make money doing flips, this should be a screaming run for the hills type of notice.
Yep. I would look at this and go, wait a second, what's going on? Ask the listing agent, what the hell happened here? And if you're not good at fixing up a property, don't buy it. And if you're good at fixing it up, or if you've got good contractors who you don't mind paying, or if you just want to experiment, great. But otherwise, this place has dropped in half in value in 7 months. That's crazy. Here's your taxes. Wow, taxes have, they're still relatively mild. They've gone up a few $100s in the last few years. Here's properties. Down to the studs. Somebody started it, didn't finish it. Got some land. Here's a design. Excuse me.
And you need to add some bathrooms to that.
My suspicion is that there might have been a hail event that wiped everything out, but that's not true. The last major hail event was in 2011. Now they had 3 of them.
Roll over.
Oh, wait.
2024, we had a wind event. 2024, we had the hail event. And a couple. So if you put 20% roof probability and 40% roof probability, you're going to start, eventually losing that roof.
Yep. Here's a picture of the roof. You can go back. This goes all the way back to 2016. If you wanted to take a look.
Years worth of coverage.
So there's the house. There's the house again.
Tree grew more.
Tree grew more.
And that's a tree that you want to have cleared off the roof. So there's another expense because you don't want any overhang.
So we estimate the roof is 10 years old. Looks like it was replaced in 2015. They last about 30 years. Shingle roofs last about 30 years, and the replacement cost is between $5,800 and $12,000. Right now, the roof condition is okay. It's not bad. One more hailstorm, who knows? 43% tree overhang is a bit much. So you're going to want to, like you said, pare that back a little bit. Lots of information about the systems and the roof. Okay. Potential threats and structural integrity. You get soil runoff issue at this location. So the question is what happens when it rains?
Yep. Where does the water go?
Yep. Maybe there's some ponding on the property. Just ask. These are all questions you should ask. These are all survivable events, but ask the question before you buy. Because even though it's $79,000, it's still $79,000. It's nothing to be shaking a stick. If somebody gave me $79,000 today, I'd be a happy guy. If I had to spend $79,000 today, I'd be an unhappy guy. Make sure you ask the questions. Water's good. Yeah, termites. There's no mine subsidence in this area, which is good. Here's the permits that we have. Electrical permit issued, restoring service to the unit. Well, that's interesting.
Yep. So somebody walked, decided, no reason for me to pay the electric bill anymore. And we had to get a permit issued to restore the service.
Wow. Yeah. So this is a fixer for sure. Water heater was replaced in 2020. Furnace replacement was in 2019. And the electrical service was established in 2017. Oh, this is interesting.
Look at that. 2013.
Yep.
Redid the sewer pipe. Still would have it scoped though.
Yep, absolutely.
What it looks like is somebody had plans for this house.
Big plans.
Was keeping it up, and then somebody came along and bought it thinking they could do something with a flip. And then that just didn't happen.
No such luck. So it's not in a 100-year or 500-year flood zone, which is great. Low risk of flood, which is lovely. As you can see from the map, nothing there. And you're a mile from the nearest flood zone. What are the climate risks here, John?
Oh, it gets hot. It gets humid. Ice falls from the sky, both as hail and as an ice storm. And, there is some winter weather, which then leads to thawing and freezing and ice dams and stuff like that. I mentioned earthquake. You are near the New Madrid fault. Last time it went in the 1850s.
Is it New Madrid or New Madrid?
Depends on your accent.
I think it's New Madrid.
Is it Rook or is it Rook?
I'm going down with Madrid.
It's Rook. So
okay.
Call it any way you want. Little Mississippi actually flowed backwards for a month after that earthquake.
Here's my interesting ice storm story interesting to me anyway. When I was in college, I had an interview in Kansas City, which is not St. Louis. I understand it's not the same thing, but it's in the same general area, roughly area.
It's across the state.
Yeah, but when you're from Massachusetts, it's close. So
okay.
That's where I discovered my first ice storm. Everything is sheeted in ice. And it is incredibly perilous because it freezes around electrical lines. It's very heavy. It will take things down. So ice storms are no joke. And this place gets real hot in the summer, cold in the winter, enough to form ice.
There you go.
All right.
Lightning, not a surprise. Tornadoes, we discussed. And you're not going to have wildfires or landslides. Landslides because you have no hills, wildfires because you're not in the right part to have it. And if St. Louis gets a tsunami, lots of really, really bad things have happened.
That would be bad. Here's part of our story.
You got rape, you got aggravated assault, burglary, motor vehicle theft, and murder. Notice that wasn't in the description of the property when you looked at it.
Yep. Why? Because realtors can't tell you what the crime rate is in an area. It looks like redlining. However, before you buy this, you're going to want to know, because if you're going to fix that place, you're going to have to guard it against theft because this is a high crime area.
You're going to have to guard it during the rebuild. Not too much a surprise on this little map. There are the known sex offenders in the area. So if you're thinking, you got 5 bedrooms, you're probably thinking, hey, great place for kids. No.
Yep. Well, there's better places for sure.
Yes. There's the neighborhood. You're not taking the bus anywhere. You're probably not walking too many places. However, it's quiet. It's not near the road. It's not near rail, not near the airport. And the town itself has pretty decent natural disaster resilience. They're used to handling the issues. So should something happen, they'll be there for you.
Points of interest. Mine is always, where's the nearest fire station?
This is schools and EV charging stations and things along those lines.
Pollution factors. PFAS, mold, radon. When you get to the C's, you get to the questionable areas. And we're always big fans of guarding against the unnatural. So to the studs construction, you don't have to worry about mold as much, but you do want to make sure that you take a look. And for radon, you may want to take a look as well. Contaminated sites, not too close. Spanish Lake Park is the nearest one, underground storage tank, is about 0.4 of a mile away. But what's interesting here is there's a lot of sinkhole activity in this area. So it didn't score high for sinkholes, but there are 3 different sinkholes within a mile of this location.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Let's see, the nearest formerly clandestine drug lab, which is always a fun one to look at, about 1.5 miles away, but back in 2009. Fire and medical response, pretty good. Law response, probably not as good. And here we go. Here's the nearest fire station. It's right down the street.
Yep.
Spanish Lake Fire Protection Station number 2, which is really good from a fire protection standpoint. And the second one is 0.78 miles away. So you're pretty well covered. You've got 3 stations within 3 miles. If something should happen, you've got pretty good response from the fire departments. Estimated utility costs is relatively low for a property of this size. Ameren is your provider, and you got to spend about $1,000 a year. If you're looking at solar, it's a 15-year payback, 10 years with federal incentives while they last, but not necessarily a high return type of investment. Insurability. You got high crime and hail, which are going to be the 2 things that drive your insurance rate, along with the age and condition of your roof. Those are the big ones in this area. And 6% per year is actually a little bit higher than average in terms of the renewal rate. So your premium's going to jump by 1/3 over the next 5 years if the current trend continues. Lots of data about the house. If you want to get, we get lots of people who want to give you insurance, so pop them all in there. And then finally, our property timeline, where it's listed in July of 25. Something happened to this house, and I can't quite figure it out. So it was listed in November at $169,000, relisted at $79,000. Crazy. And here's the thing.
I think what happened is that LLC went bankrupt.
Yep.
And they're just getting rid of the properties.
Just dumping it. Let me ask you something. For a $79,000 property, do you think that you would have gotten value from a $69 PropertyLens report?
Oh, absolutely. We identified a number of issues that you just aren't going to get. So in this case, the seller seems like, or the previous owner seems like an LLC. So there's nobody living there. There's nobody to talk to. You're buying essentially an abandoned, flipped property. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon your opinion, they got it down to the studs. So you can't live in it. You can buy it. I guess you could live in it, but it's not really livable. So, knowing that before you go in might even give you a little bit more leverage. I don't know how much further low you could go than $80,000 on this property, but maybe you can get a little bit more on the concession side. It is as is, so any concession is just going to be on the price. But understanding what you're getting into and what the costs are associated with it and what the issues could be and the crime, would be my biggest concern. Yeah, I might have thought about this, and $69 later, I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm out.
I take a slightly different view of things. Is it worth a $69 PropertyLens report on a $79,000 house? And the answer is absolutely. Because here, the realtor's probably not going to be able to tell you a whole lot. This property looks like it's being dumped for one reason or another. They're selling it as is, no inspections, no nothing. So you want to come to the door knowing what you're getting yourself into. Now, for those of you who are adventuresome and who want to do a rebuild of a property, this is a great canvas to work on. You got some footprint. You've got some walls. I don't know what they look like, but you know you're going to have some extra costs associated with rebuilding this house than you would otherwise. So my take is I'm not necessarily scared by this house. It's going to cost more than you think to rebuild because it's a little bit more complicated to rebuild. But there's an opportunity here to build a house, get out relatively inexpensively, and either bring it to market value or rent it out. So if you're the kind of person who's like, maybe you're young, you're young and dumb, this makes you a lot smarter about buying the place. So I say absolutely 1,000% worth the cost of the report because it's a little more complex than it looks.
But let's take this a slightly different way.
Okay.
You're out looking to buy a house, any house.
Mm-hmm.
On average, how many houses does that home buyer look at, Bob?
10.
10. That's the number. And
well, hang on, they'll look at hundreds, but they'll consider 10.
They'll consider 10. They'll look at hundreds. So you're down to your favorite 10.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're earning $100,000 a year, you're making $50 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take you at least an hour to go look at each one of these houses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 10 hours of your life, or $500. For $3.99, you have 10 PropertyLens reports. You're up $100 right there, not including your spouse or partner or friend or whoever you're buying the house with. You've already made money, essentially, on the houses. And if you take out of the equation the 5 or 6 that you now absolutely don't want because of what you learned, that's 6 more hours of your life saved.
Mm-hmm. Maybe even more, because you might go to you might rank order those 10 and say, this is the 1, 2, 3. And then by the third one, you're like, that's the one I want. I don't want to go see the other 7. I save myself that time. So yeah,
that's
you're
where
right.
The value is, on top of everything else. Your time is worth something.
It's worth a lot
and
more than $50 an hour.
And your realtor ought to be providing these reports to you.
You know how much time I bill myself at $400 an hour when my feet are up on the couch watching a football game. That's $400 an hour I charge myself during that time. It's like that relaxation time is key. So you got to think about the time value of your own time. And most people don't. That's the problem. I mean, maybe you want to see it out of curiosity. Maybe that's your hobby. But gosh, this gives you a tool to help you go through. Okay, here's 10. Maybe not these 3. Maybe not these 5. Here's the ones we want to focus on.
That's all right.
Any parting thoughts there, John? That sounded like a parting thought. Any more parting thoughts? Okay.
Nope, that's it.
Time value of money, plus anybody who you go with. So I look at it this way. You got to have a certain sense of adventure to buy this property. And you got to know what you're doing, because it's a little more complex than a first-timer might want to tackle. But that said, it's an opportunity to own a slice of America. Nothing wrong with that. All right. So for this week's episode of Property of the Week, I'm Bob Frady.
I'm John Siegman.
Don't forget to subscribe. It makes us feel better about ourselves. See you next time.